Hey everyone, it's Tom here, and today we're looking at Redout on the enhanced console. So that's Xbox One X and PS4 Pro. Now, we've been waiting for this for a little while, having originated on PC, and now it's come over to console. The real focus here is how does it translate, and do we get a 4K experience from these consoles, as was suggested by the developer 34 Big Things, who said we'd be getting 4K support in Redout with the enhanced patch. So to answer these questions is Dave Bearton.
Hey Tom.
So what have you noticed about Xbox One X's enhanced patch for this game?
Okay, so before we get started with Xbox One X, let's say that when we checked out the PS4 Pro version, which was supposed to be running using 4K checkerboard rendering, it was native 1080p, targeting 60 frames per second. And first impressions on the Xbox One X version is that we're still not getting native 4K. The situation is basically native 1080p visuals, although you do get 4K HUD, so that's not upscaled where it is on the PS4 Pro.
Wow, 4K HUD, that's not quite what we were expecting here. Let me get this straight, absolutely no 4K native rendering in the game itself, so what we're getting here is an exact match for the 1080p we have on Pro.
In terms of resolution, yes, but bizarrely with Xbox One X, going into this, I was expecting kind of PS4 Pro feature set, close to PC's epic settings, but when looking at it, we're actually getting what appears to be more of the Xbox One base version, but running with an uncapped frame rate, rather than any sort of significant enhancements. So to get it straight, basically visual quality is dialed back slightly compared to PlayStation 4 Pro and indeed base PS4, but we get a higher frame rate than what is present on base Xbox One.
It's hard to ignore the frame rate graph that we're showing right now. This isn't looking good for Xbox One X on the performance front either, so let's review. So far the resolution is on par with Pro. The visual settings are worse because they're basically running at the base Xbox One level of settings. And then we're looking at a frame rate graph which is reading down to the 50s at points. It's not a good showing at all, is it?
No, it's not. It kind of looks like basically they've taken the base Xbox One code, which is capped to 30 frames per second, but with sort of problematic frame pacing issues, and basically unlocked that. So you get up to 60 frames per second at points, but then there's also these big lurches down to 50 FPS, sometimes below to around 40 FPS, which is not something you're really expecting with Xbox One X and the amount of extra GPU power the system's got to offer.
Now, before we recorded this video, you gave me a kind of rundown of all the things that we should talk about, and I was in disbelief, and I still am, because, that sort of frame rate result is what you'd expect maybe if the game was genuinely running at a native 4K or something like that on Xbox One X, and then you're telling me the visual settings are worse, and, I've checked the screens that you've sent my way to make double sure that it is actually a 1080p pixel count, and yeah, it is. It's kind of staggering that there is a 4K HUD on top of that though, because it does suggest that the game has received some level of support, even if it is a very low effort form of it. So maybe, possibly, we could get something down the line to fill in that promise, but looking at the checkerboard situation, or the promise of checkerboard 4K on Pro, it kind of suggests 34 Big Things may not be getting to it. Who knows?
Yeah, I actually double checked the PlayStation 4 Pro version again after checking out the Xbox One X game, and yet still native 1080p, so judging by what we've seen so far, I'm guessing maybe this is it, 1080p is as high as we're gonna get. Disappointing to see that performance is worse than Pro though, which kind of doesn't make sense. So I don't know whether it's something along the lines of they've got the base Xbox One code and have done a very basic enhancement where the extra power is automatically used to bump up frame rates rather than being specifically optimized for the console. But then again, they've actually got a 4K HUD here, so it's hard to tell what exactly, is the vision behind this patch, what they were trying to achieve with it.
Well, needless to say, the game is still as great as it ever was on PC. I mean, it is clearly a brilliant take on the futuristic racing sort of genre, and I think it is close enough to 60 on Xbox One X to kind of pass for it, but certainly compared to the original Xbox One performance where you had the 30 FPS cap with erratic frame pacing, I think I would take what X is offering, but it still doesn't explain why we are seeing these drops, because in the end we are looking at 40% increase in compute over a PS4 Pro, same resolution, and yet these results just aren't really cutting it for a slick 60 FPS is what you'd expect from this genre. F-Zero has it, Wipeout has it, so what's going wrong?
Yeah, it's really bizarre. I mean, PlayStation 4 Pro actually delivers pretty much locked 60 frames per second aside from the occasional, 1 FPS drop or so. So that already is giving us that 60 FPS target we want. Sure, it's 1080p, but the experience is still really good fun to play. I mean, it's pretty much solidly smooth and it makes a lot of difference, whereas on X, not so much so. Definitely a big improvement over base hardware, so if you're an Xbox One owner that's got an X, you're going to get a nice upgrade there, but it's not exactly, it could have been better in that respect. I don't understand in this case why we're not getting just a solid 60 FPS line with the same sort of visuals as Pro.
My hopeful thinking is it's just a placeholder and we may get something better down the line, but we can't just assume that. What we do get at least though is a resolution bump. So what we're seeing here between Xbox One and Xbox One X is at least an improved level of pixels.
Yeah, it's a 972p on Xbox One base hardware compared to 1080p on the X.
Is there any difference between the two then? So it is just exactly the same settings wise at high settings, I believe?
From what I've seen, the settings are the same. I'm not sure which preset exactly it correlates to with the PC version, but certain things like shadows and draw distances are slightly reduced compared to PS4 Pro and PC. But when you're racing, a lot of those settings you don't really notice the difference. The base sort of artwork is the same across all three, so the presentation in reality when you're sort of racing at high speed with all the motion blur post-processing actually looks very close now that we've got the X version at 1080p. It's really just kind of the performance aspect that's a little bit disappointing that it's not solid there. But yeah, aside from the resolution and frame rate bump, graphical quality is basically a match for the base Xbox One version, so it sits below base PS4 Pro and PC in that respect.
Okay, so that about covers it. Not the result I was really hoping for from this game. I mean, it has a long way to go to really reach the potential I was hoping for on Xbox One X. On PS4 Pro though, that's actually looking pretty solid. And if you're looking for a way to play it on console, that seems like the definitive version for now at least. We'll obviously keep an eye on this one, and if anything changes, we'll hopefully get back to it. But in the meantime, thanks Dave for joining me.
No worries, Tom.
And if you did like this video and want to see more, please do like and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out. And as ever, we have the source file to this video on our Patreon at digitalfoundry.net, so feel free to check that out. But until next time, thanks for watching.